ranking every Sigma Fortress from worst to best.
Starting off with the worst Sigma Fortress, we obviously have Mega Man X7. I mean, haven't I complained enough about this first stage in so many videos already? Well, just in case I haven't, this is awful. First of all, it's an auto-scroller, nobody likes that. Secondly, the camera placement is abysmal to the point where I can't even tell if anyone has playtested this. Are these bad camera angles supposed to add difficulty? Because that shouldn't be what makes a game like this difficult. The level design should be doing all the heavy lifting, but here in the first stage of Mega Man X7 Sigma Fortress, we have maybe the most boring level of all time, with a camera that just can't make up its own mind on where to record you from. I know Lakitu holds the camera in Mario 64, but I guess in this game we get one of those weirdos from Airman stage holding the camera. I don't know who's doing it, but they're clearly out to get us. Also, this thing chasing you is ugly and annoying, and if you slip up once, you have to wait for the stupid auto-scroller all over again, which makes me want to die in Mega Man until I get a game over so I can play a different stage, or better yet, a different game entirely. Anyway, stage 2 here isn't that bad. It's honestly a pretty decent level as far as Mega Man X7 goes. I mean, we have actual platforming that could pass for 2D, so I can't complain that much about the level design. What I can complain about, however, is the boss fight against Red. This is not hard or like inherently the worst thing ever by any means, but it is boring. You basically only get one chance to hit him before he does his whole cycle of attacks again, making this boss a walking auto-scroller. I don't hate this nearly as much as the ugly Crusher thing from the first stage, but this is still just boring. In Sigma 3, we have this really stupid section before the refights. This is just boring and annoying. I don't even know what else to even say about it. The section towards the very end, right before the refights where we get to play the game in 2D, isn't as bad, but it certainly doesn't make up for anything we've been through thus far. Then we have the refights, which just isn't fun because it's Mega Man X7. The Sigma fight at the very end is admittedly pretty cool, but once again, it does not make up for anything this fortress has forced us to deal with. So this is by far the worst Sigma castle ever made. Mega Man X4 Sigma Fortress, however, is also horrendous, but for completely different reasons. Instead of having horrible level design or bad camera angles or something, we just get nothing. We don't get anything in this fortress. Sigma Stage 1 is literally a straight line with a couple of enemies and that's it. That's the entire stage. This is pathetic. It's only better than Mega Man X7 because at least I can turn my brain off and be finished with this, but it provides absolutely nothing. This is the ice soup of Sigma stages, but Sigma Stage 2 is not much better. It is a little bit better because at least we have something to play, but it's just extremely underwhelming. Like if Sigma 1 was the ice soup of Sigma stages, this is like ice soup with salt. Like there's something there, but it just makes the ice colder and it hurts my tongue more and it just makes me mad. Why would you make ice soup with salt? Ice soup, okay, you're being funny. Ice soup with salt, what are you doing? The background, by the way, is hideous and it makes it hard to see anything. The platforming is mid at best and the enemy placement is just basic. It doesn't feel like there's any effort put into this. And there definitely isn't anything good enough to make up for the fact that there basically wasn't even a first Sigma stage to begin with. Then that's it. That's the entire Sigma Fortress. I mean, yeah, we do get a refight stage, of course, after an even more pathetic straight line than in Sigma Stage 1 from earlier, but that's the entirety of the fortress. This is absurd. Some of you might be thinking that like spaceship stage where you fight the Colonel or whatever counts as a Sigma stage. That's not a fortress. That's like its own separate side quest. Anyway, I don't know why more people don't complain about this or talk about how horrible this fortress is. Maybe because this is Mega Man X4, which while fun is incredibly overrated, so I guess people don't want to hate on it, but that's stupid and this fortress is even stupider. In fact, even Mega Man X6, the gate stages are better than Mega Man X4 Sigma Fortress, which is crazy, and I know you guys are already disagreeing with me in the comments, but at least this is something to play. At least I have some challenge at the end of the game to go through before I'm finished. Granted, I guess a monkey's paw curled after complaining about X4 because this fortress is frankly too difficult and borderline unfair. I mean, it's not nearly as bad as everyone says it is, but it's certainly close. But my subscribers are probably great at this. They have no problem with any Mega Man levels. I mean, if you subscribe, you would know. But first of all, the levels all look identical, so instead of going through them individually, I'm just going to talk about the flaws for this fortress as a whole, since every level just blends together in this amalgamation of frustration and atrocities, which is the first flaw with this castle. If you're X, you need certain armors to progress, and if you're Zero, you better know how to use all of your abilities, though I guess that's not that bad level design if you're Zero, since that was the running theme in the classic series. But did you know you have to unlock Zero in this game? Meaning if you just play this game for the first time, not knowing what you're doing, and you don't pay attention, you'll just end up confused in the first room of the fortress, which again is more annoying than objectively bad, but I did want to complain. I mean, Mega Man X is a great series, so like I don't get to complain about it a lot, so I'm gonna complain extra in these worst fortresses, you know? Anyway, this fortress is full of spikes, horrible enemy placement, absurd platforming, and the stupidest boss fights of all time. Hymax is borderline impossible to defeat, Gate is one of the most tedious beings to battle in the history of gaming, and don't even get me started on this weird square devil, not to be confused with the block devil from Mega Man 10, or the walls that look like they would be called the block devil from Mega Man 2. Also, Sigma in this game just sucks. First, he's a hobo, which I guess is funny, but then he's C-3PO? Why? Why? It's not even hard to beat, especially after going through these actual levels. This is just stupid. The only redeeming quality for the Sigma boss fight is that the floor kind of looks like a red carpet, which is cool, I guess. But all of that being said, this fortress is still better than X7 or X4 because first of all, I can actually play the fortress and there are several levels to, you know, spend time on and stuff like you would do in a video game, but it's also not the same type of difficulty as Mega Man X7 is. Sure, they both are frustrating to a degree, that's a little bit too much, but X7 feels like it should be easy and the game's mechanics are actively making it difficult, whereas X6 has game design that feels intentionally difficult and at times unfair while giving you game mechanics that feel smooth that you're actually able to master, making this significantly more tolerable. So yeah, this fortress is underrated, but it's only better than the epitome of horrible level design in X7 and better than literally nothing from X4. Mega Man X5 actually has the first Sigma castle that isn't objectively problematic in some way. It's still not great by any means, but it's something. The background hurts my eyes, but the music is good at least. This is actually my favorite track in Mega Man X5. We start off with some Quick Man lasers, which are classic, followed by a yellow devil, a shadow devil. And this boss is annoying, but I do appreciate the references since this game was supposed to be the final Mega Man X game, so referencing a lot of the classics just makes sense. Overall, if we ignore the shadow devil, this first stage is actually pretty good, and even the shadow devil isn't too bad. The second Sigma stage changes the background to be pink, which is fun, and we also just get a good level. Again, this is like mid compared to what we'll see later, but compared to what we've been through so far, this is amazing. It's actually a competently designed level with fun and challenging platforming. And the boss is a Rangda Bangda. That's pretty cool, I guess, but we'll hopefully get something original in the next stage. This one is pretty great, and the background seems to turn more red. It is a little bit too short for my liking, but that's because it's meant to build tension and suspense. Also, there's a secret part here for some reason. I feel like that's a little late, Dr. Light, but I do appreciate the sentiment. Also, we get to fight Zero, or Mega Man X if we're playing as Zero. That's awesome. I don't care if we technically already fought Zero in Mega Man X2, I'm counting this as original. The music is also amazing, and this fight is incredibly fun from both sides, and it's really setting a precedent for what a Sigma castle should be, at least compared to what we've looked at so far. This final stage changed the music, and I'm personally not a fan, but for once I won't claim this is an objective take because I could definitely see myself liking it if I didn't already hate the beginning of Mega Man X5. But one good thing about this stage is that the beginning is a reference to Bubble Man stage from Mega Man 2 when you first land at the bottom of that underwater section, and I actually didn't know this until I saw Maverick Slayer's video that he posted in my Discord server, which you guys should join, by the way. I check that server more often than my comments a lot of times, and while I haven't been super active as far as chatting in there recently, I do have plans to be in there more often and even join some voice chats if you guys want to play Mega Man together or something. But anyway, that's an extra thing I can appreciate about this stage thanks to Maverick Slayer. So everyone go join my Discord and ping him saying thank you. Don't give him any context though, just ping him with thank you and nothing else. Let him find this video on his own because it's funnier that way. Anyway, thank you Maverick Slayer. This stage is pretty short and then we have the refights, which are fine I guess. The Sigma fight is also pretty decent. The second stage of the fight with Moldy Head can be a bit annoying, but this is much better than Mega Man X6 at the very least. Which means we've ended the bottom half of this list on the up and up, which is a good sign.
But now things are going to get interesting as we enter the top 4 Sigma fortresses. Which fortress will prevail? Which fortress will be number 1? Find out after this interruption.
Don't incorporate me in your videos. I don't want to be here.
Mega Man X8 is honestly hard to put above Mega Man X5 as far as Sigma Fortresses go at least, but there is a tiebreaker that I'll mention at some point, so don't worry. But if it wasn't for that, they're either tied or Mega Man X5 might be on this half of the list because in Mega Man X8 we start with an auto-scroller. Now this is more of an endurance survival level than an auto-scroller, but it's certainly a little bit boring once you play it several times. I can't call it bad because it's much better than other auto-scrollers, and because we're in Mega Man X8, it's always satisfying to see enemies drop money. I mean, medals, isn't that what they're called in this game? I don't know, I don't read. Either way, it's a decently fun stage for an auto-scroller, and the boss fight certainly isn't bad. Plus, we get this nice view of the night sky and the moon during the fight, which is always fun. The second stage starts off with the refights, which is normally a very bad sign, but unlike the other Mega Man X games, or even classic Mega Man games for the matter, the majority of the best parts of the fortress are after the refights, but also the refights are alright, I guess. I mean, they're pretty standard. But right after the refights, the entire place is exploding, and we have to escape and run into Sigma? So now we gotta fight Sigma and beat him, only to find out he's actually hiding out on the moon? This was the tiebreaker, by the way. We get to go to the moon. This is sick. I know that technically doesn't mean this is like one coherent fortress, but I hope you guys understand the spirit of this video enough to know that it's okay to include the moon in the fortress for Mega Man X8. You like the moon, right? That thing that shows up in the sky at night, you know, the moon. Anyway, once we take one small step for man, we gotta fight Vile again? Alright, that's cool, I guess, but now there are Sigmas everywhere, which is just mind-blowing, especially as a kid if you played this game then. The platforming in this final level is great. I know the spikes can be difficult, but I really do like this final stage a lot. It's probably my favorite stage we've taken a look at so far, and the fact that the enemies are all Sigma makes it even cooler. Then we get a 3-phase boss fight with Demon Sigma, Lumine, that's pretty cool, and then Angel Lumine to counteract the Demon Sigma. Anyway, overall, this fortress is great. It was hard to put it over Mega Man X5 just because of its zero fights, but I think Mega Man X8 just barely has an edge. But then Mega Man X2 comes in and just sets a new standard. Banger music out the gates, banger level design instantaneously. Everything about this Sigma Castle is amazing, and the first stage starts off with a huge bang. Obviously, the first 3 Mega Man X games on the Super Nintendo are just inherently the best ones. They have the best controls, the best level design, and the best music in general. The other Mega Man X games get close in some of those regards, but none of them have all 3 of those at the same time, like the original 3 do, but we could talk more about that in another video. This first stage is fun to do fast. You have lots of enemies and lots of spikes, but once you make it through there, you fight this ugly guy who's very difficult the first time you fight him, but then one day you learn that you're able to use bubbles and cheese him like this. Hey, maybe today is the day that you learn that. If that's the case, then please subscribe, please. The second Sigma stage is pretty short, but this time we get to go underwater. We have some more great platforming, hole dodging, enemy killing, and a lot of spike avoiding. The platforms here can be pretty annoying, especially if you miss your bus and end up having to wait, but it's not too bad. And that's really the only flaw with this level other than it being a little bit too short, since right after you get out of the water, you're just done and it's time to fight the old man inside the machine. Also, apparently some people think this guy is Dr. Wily, but I'm pretty sure I covered that in my Mega Man Mythbusters video. The third Sigma stage has a little bit more boring level design until you start to go through the path to get the Shoryuken. And then it's just difficult and absurd enough to be super fun again. Also, you get the Shoryuken. Why did none of the games after Mega Man X3 have any cool Tekken move Easter eggs, huh? That alone makes the SNES games the best. Anyway, even if this level is not as good as the first 2, it's still great and is way better than pretty much any of the levels from the other Sigma Fortresses we've already talked about. And the boss is just Shoryuken target practice, so that's fun. Next is the refights, but we get a reference to the final Sigma stage in Mega Man X1, which is cool. And also there's this broken teleporter here that is cool, I guess, but I forgot the story implications for that because I can't read. But then the final Sigma stage is epic. It's Magna Centipede stage. Okay, hear me out. That is weird. I don't know why we're in Magma Centipede stage again, but we do get to fight Zero. Unless you got all the Zero parts, then you get to skip that. But why would you want to do that? Fighting Zero is fun. I would never miss out on that opportunity on purpose. Anyway, the Sigma boss fight is also super fun. We get to Wolverine Sigma and then eventually the Wireframe Sigma, and it's just all around a great fight to wrap up an amazing Sigma Fortress. Mega Man X3 Sigma Fortress is somehow just slightly better though. Honestly, X2, X3, and spoilers, but even X1 are all so good they could be interchangeable as to which one is the best, but I tried my best to rank these fairly despite them all being so close. But Mega Man X3's castle is great. We start off with a fun, fast-paced level that just feels perfect for a Sigma stage. I will say a lot of the more basic looking levels in Mega Man X3 just feel more fun because you have the dash boost that lets you jump upwards, which allows for better movement and some cool tricks later, and I know that doesn't have anything to do with the Sigma Fortress specifically, but it is part of the gameplay that contributes to the Sigma Fortress, just like Mega Man X7's camera, so I think it's fair to take into account. This Sigma Fortress even has different bosses depending on whether or not you killed Bit and Byte and Vile, so that's extra cool. But this next stage takes things to another level. We have more great level design followed by some underwater sections, which are always fun in Mega Man X. Then we have a chance to get Zero killed and steal his sword, which is great. And then we have the greatest skill check in any Mega Man X game being the Snail Room. Now, I've talked about this in length before, but just to catch everyone up, this room is frustrating and boring if you do this the frustrating and boring way. But don't do that. Do it the fun and cool way. Yes, this is harder, but look how cool it is. Would you rather die of old age trying to get to the top or die in a blaze of glory going for the gold? I know my answer, and I think the fact that you're even presented with such an opportunity makes this stage amazing. Next up, we do have the refights, meaning we only had 2 Sigma stages, but it certainly felt like 3 with how long that last one was. Maybe it's just because I count that weird fly bug as a regular boss and not a mid-stage boss in my head, but anyway. Despite this fortress being short, it is incredibly good. Also, it does end with a Kaiser Sigma or whatever he's called. Yeah, his head is annoying to shoot, but just get good. I like this fight just fine. But one thing I like even more is Mega Man X1 Sigma Fortress. I hate to say it, but Capcom got it right the first time, at least when it comes to the Sigma Fortress. We'll rank the games another day, don't worry. And that day, Mega Man X4 will get some more love. I know you left so many hate comments. It's just a Sigma Fortress in X4, alright? It's a good game. Anyway, this fortress starts off with Zero meeting up with you outside and literally pointing at Sigma's mountain fortress, and then instead of teleporting in there like we tend to do, Mega Man X just scales the mountain and invades Sigma's castle, and this is how it always should be. Not only is this an amazing entrance story-wise and aura-wise, but it's also fun. I like seeing the environment change as I progress further into the fortress. Once we enter, we of course have to fight Vile, and then spoilers, Zero dies in the first game. If you're nothing new here, this happens a lot, so don't freak out. Then, with the death of Zero on our mind, we progress even further through this amazing level and eventually kill a spider. I mean, that does take courage and motivation, I guess. Then, Sigma Stage 2 continues with the amazing and perfect level design, but this time we have such a beautiful background throughout the entire stage that eventually leads to the best entry for a seamless refight in all of Mega Man, Storm Eagle's refight. Look, I'm normally not a fan of this style of refights. I prefer it when we just get one room full of teleporters, but this is peak. If all the refights were staged this seamlessly, I would never complain about missing teleporters. But unfortunately, Storm Eagle is the only one this great. Also, we fight Rangda Bangda, who looks really cool. I've always liked this boss fight, but I don't really know why. Like, obviously it's fun, but it just seems cool to me. Maybe because it's a giant face or that the eyeballs change colors. I don't know. Anyways, Sigma 3 is definitely the worst Sigma stage in this game. It's still a fun stage, but it's like 90% refights, which I just got done complaining about, since, you know, these refights are not seamless. We do get a little medley of their stage right before the fight to help transition a little bit, but it's nothing crazy. Despite it clearly being the worst Sigma stage from this game, it's still a great time, even though the boss at the end is certainly a big jerk. Sigma Stage 4 is the final stage, and while I called this the stupidest level for Mega Man X1 and my stupidest level for Mega Man, it's not because I don't like it. I just thought it was funny to call this vertical section stupid because it's easy to make fun of. But I think this is amazing from a level design point of view. First of all, this is your checkpoint, so every time you fight Sigma, including the first time, you have to start right here and build up your anticipation and suspense by climbing the walls. But also, these little worms come out of these hole walls here infinitely in case you need to fill up your weapon energy or sub-tank or something. Granted, that's a horrible way to fill up your sub-tank, since if you game over, you can farm in any stage you want to, but it's the thought that counts. And don't even get me started on the boss fight. We get to kill his dog. Then he whips out a lightsaber and starts jumping on the walls. Then somehow he and his dead dog combine into this purple thing. Okay, I didn't describe that in the best way, but I promise it's cool. To sum up all that yapping, Sigma Fortress for Mega Man X1 is objectively the best Sigma Fortress of all time.
That was every Sigma stage ranked from worst to best. As always, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and if you did, leave a comment down below on what other videos you'd like to see me make, because I'm always interested.
What? I'm just here getting water.
You're getting... You know what? I'm sorry. I'm just used to you interrupting me and calling me stupid and annoying and stuff.
Why would I do that? I don't like you. So I want to spend as little time around you as possible.
You know what? You've been acting real suspicious.